Protests turned destructive in downtown Seattle tonight. Here's what we know as of 10 o'clock.
How do you want to start this off? Do you want to start by talking about why we're even doing this?
Yeah, maybe just a brief introduction.
Yeah, well, basically, this is what we do every night anyways. We have these conversations. I know that our conversations last anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours on so many different things. And especially here in the last year or two, it's been about everything that's been happening since COVID lockdowns and how the world just seems a little bit more crazier. And we talk about this every night. And so why not do a podcast out there? We're not here in this early stages. I know that we're going to screw up this stuff a lot, but if we could reach out to people out there and people can see that other people are talking about this and that are kind of like-minded, maybe this might hit home with a couple of people. Maybe a couple of people out there might get a little bit out of what me and you talk about, or at least some insight in our conversations at night. What did you say?
No, nothing. I was just letting you do your introduction. But yeah, I mean, on my part, I've got some experience in law enforcement. I was a correctional officer for 10 years. Been friends with this guy for most of my life, really. Probably, I think it was middle school we met, and a lot of the stuff that he started talking about that he found out coming back from the military, some things that didn't make sense to him, just really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of it, and I started doing my research. And there were some guys I worked with at the jail that I was a correctional officer at that kind of seen things the same way. And I mean, you fast forward to where we're at now, it's kind of hard to deny that there hasn't been some kind of plot, against humanity. I think it's pretty evident by now.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I guess one topic I did want to cover was
Wait, you got to introduce yourself.
oh, I thought I did that on the last time. Oh, well, I guess I met you, I think I don't know if it was was it primary is when we met?
I think it was 8th grade, somewhere in there.
8th grade, yep.
Yeah.
And you were good friends with my brother, and you were good friends with me. And then I remember after getting out of high school, I went to the military. You went and did construction, and we didn't talk there for a while until I came back. And then we had a couple of long, good conversations when I came back, especially about the birth certificates and all that stuff I found out about the birth certificates. And then, after I moved out of California, we kind of didn't talk to each other for, I don't know, quite a few years. And you just had your life, I had mine. And then all this craziness started happening. I remember calling you shortly after the whole world got locked down again. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
I knew something was up right away. And I knew that you were probably someone that would probably understand the gravity of the situation. And I talked to other people about it, some relatives. Almost every relative I talked to thought I was crazy, except for maybe a few. And then I talked to you, and you were the first one to kind of introduce me to some of the more underground stuff that was happening at the time. And I thought that first hearing it, it's kind of hard to believe at first, and then you sit and you think about it, and then it definitely does make sense, especially if you're going to sit and mull on it. if you're going to sit and think about it from a bunch of different angles and say, can this absolutely be possible? Is there a conspiracy? Is there a conspiracy? And me and you already talked about 9/11, and we already talked about that being an inside job. So if you have that and you understand that that definitely was an inside job, and then you understand, you know, what we knew about the birth certificates and the Masonic symbols on so much stuff, including our money and stuff. You put all that as a background going forward to 2020 when the entire world shut down. And all of a sudden, people like me and you start popping up going, hey, wait a minute, something's not right here. Something's not right here. So let's start having some conversations about what we're witnessing, what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. And that's kind of what happened. It kind of took off, just me and you talking. As a matter of fact, I remember out of all the people, me and you had the most well-developed conversations. I could sit there and I could listen to you talk for forever. There was no judgment, and you would sit and you would listen to all my rants, no matter how ridiculous they were. And you would throw your ideas back at me. And then I would either believe them or say, maybe it's not like that. Maybe it's like this. And I would think about it, and I throw them back at you. And then you would give me what you thought about it. And we go back and forth. And basically that's kind of what led us up to where we're at today, is our conversations. It's except for we're just putting them out there for other people to watch, to see if anyone else is vibing with this, anyone else is, you know, seeing the same things or similar things to what we're seeing. And it's important. I think it's extremely important in today's society, in this moment, with all the censorship that's going on, with all the isolation that's our government and governments around the world that are trying to impose on everybody. I think people need to hear this. I think that years from now, people are going to look back and go, man, my God, what a crazy time. And you got all these YouTubers out there talking about things that people want to hear, and they were getting silenced. And
Right.
and I honestly think that in the next year or two, people that are talking like this are going to rely heavily on them, as opposed to, you know, the mainstream media, just because there's too much crap coming out of the mainstream media. And this right here, you can find more meaningful conversation, just two dudes talking about what they really see and what they really feel about the situation at hand, as opposed to any crap that you can get on mainstream media right now. And that's telling of the situation and the times that we're living in. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's just, yeah, it's important to start asking questions. You know, I just, it bothers me that there's so many people that are still with all that we went through these last couple of years, and how much they've infringed on our rights. And, you know, a lot of them are just still going about their life like nothing happened. You know, everybody's just, a lot of people anyway are just back to, you know, watching American Idol and sports. And
Yeah, that gets me, bro.
yeah,
I'm like, go ahead.
it just blows my mind, because, you know, I feel like if we don't stand up now and start asking questions and looking into the real reason why these things are going on, before you know it, it's going to be too late. I mean, we've talked about that a lot, especially lately with them pushing hard on the guns.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
both know why they're doing that.
Oh, yeah. And we called this, I remember you telling me 2 years ago when the lockdowns first started, you said that you thought that they were coming for our guns right then and there.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and I mean, it's hard not to think about that. I mean, especially, did we ever talk about all the previous mass shootings that seemed off, like Sandy Hook and everything else like that?
No, I think this will end up being our first one that we post, so we can go into that now, or we could.
No, I mean, did we ever have
Oh,
conversations before? I think we
general?
did. Yeah, I
Oh
think
yeah, absolutely.
about Sandy Hook being, very suspicious of not being an actual real
Oh,
shooting at all.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
The way I see it, and this is just my opinion. I honestly believe, truly, to the bottom of my heart, I truly believe that these mass shootings, almost every mass shooting that we've ever seen, since probably Columbine, has been orchestrated, whether it's been real or not. And again, I say Sandy Hook is the exception to that. I don't know if Sandy Hook really took place or not. And but I'm a firm believer in that every single mass shooting that we've had has been orchestrated by the FBI and the CIA. Maybe not everybody in the FBI. I don't think everybody in the FBI is corrupt, but I know there is enough in the FBI that is corrupt at the high echelons of the FBI and the high echelons of the CIA and the high echelons of other different um, government agencies, that I think that the ones pulling this off. I mean, how many mass shootings did we have when we were a kid? Like, there was Columbine and that was it. And the whole world was shocked about Columbine.
Right.
And maybe there was another shooting before Columbine, but they were extremely rare. And then all of a sudden you get Barack Obama as president, and then all of a sudden you got mass shootings everywhere. And then Trump becomes president, and there's like no mass shootings except for the Las Vegas shooting, but no school shootings at all. And then Joe Biden becomes president, and then a year goes by, and now we got shootings everywhere. And it's mass shootings at schools specifically. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I really don't. I think it's being orchestrated. And I think in certain instances, I think that maybe police departments have been, some of the police departments chiefs and sheriffs may have been bought out or maybe blackmailed to like not apprehend some suspects quick enough. I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't have any evidence to support that, but that's what it seems. That's especially with this last shooting in Texas. It seems like, why would they take so long? Why would it take an hour to go in there and apprehend an active shooter? They don't even train like that anymore.
No.
They train most of the standard operating procedure for police officers when they engage active shooters. They're trained to go in and apprehend the active shooter immediately.
Right.
And that the reason for that is because mass shooters don't take hostages and they don't negotiate. So the rules of engagement and the standard operating procedures over the years have changed. All police officers know this. They get this training where it's like, no, we don't screw around. If there's an active shooter at a school, you go there, you apprehend them. If you're one dude, you apprehend them. If you're 100 dudes, you go apprehend them. It doesn't matter. Because the risk is that the shooter starts popping off at kids, and obviously that's not what anyone wants. And so you got to apprehend them as quickly as possible. Did we see that in Texas? No, we didn't see that in Texas.
No, there's a lot more people asking questions with this
Yeah.
one. So that further proves our point, kind of what we touched on at the beginning about, people tuning into stuff like this, having conversations that lead to things like this. I think that's proof, that people are asking questions regarding this specific shooting that just occurred. There's already a ton of people.
Yeah, and
that it just, there's a lot of things that aren't adding up.
yeah, and it's good to see so many people asking questions now.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
There's-
Let's touch on though your background,
Which part?
specifically your military, and kind of, I guess basically just like we kind of talked about before, and some of the things you've seen when things started to not add up, when you started asking questions, and kind of what led you down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, really things started not adding up for me when I was in Iraq. I was in Iraq from 2003 to 2004, and I spent about a year in Iraq and
Army, right?
Army airborne infantry, and I was a saw gunner and jumped into Iraq in Bashor airfield in the north of Kirkuk, secured that airfield, you know, about a month later, moved on to Kirkuk. I don't remember if it was a month or 3 weeks, something like that, but moved into Kirkuk, assaulted Kirkuk and Kirkuk airport on flatbed pickup trucks. Some of us were, because, you know, we're airborne, we're in there. It's before tanks, it's before Bradleys, it's before, you know, so we're mainly on foot. You know, we only had like 2 or 3 Humvees, and those were, you know, for the commanders and stuff. And so we got put on flatbed pickup trucks, went into Kirkuk, secured the entire air base 1-2 days, and then we started pushing out. And we kept on getting orders to stay longer. First, it was, you know, oh boys, you're gonna jump in, you're gonna do this. Here's your mission. You're gonna secure the air bases, and you're out. It's 2-week mission. All right, no problems. Go in there, do everything that we're supposed to do, and then say, oh well, we need you for a little bit longer. And they're like, okay, well, what are we doing? And they, you know, mission after mission. Not only secure the airbase, push it out further, to go into the city, start setting up traffic control points, TCPs, start disarming the population. We didn't start disarming the population right away. It was maybe a couple months in. Then when we got the orders to start disarming the population, and that was painstaking. That was traffic control points every day. Once the word spread that we were disarming Iraq, people started driving with their AKs like in their hoods of their vehicles. They started hiding them everywhere, which, looking back on it, I mean, I don't blame them. If somebody came into the United States to disarm us, I'm sure we would hide them. But after that, did a couple raiding missions to raid a couple of the Al-Qaeda members that are cells that we knew that were in the area. There was Fedayeen cells that were in the area. There was what we call safe houses for some of the financiers, the Fedayeen financiers. About a couple months in, we got decks of cards, right? Like poker cards. And these cards had the faces of everybody that we were supposed to capture. And there was Chemical Ali, there was Saddam Hussein's sons, some Fedayeen financiers, and some Al-Qaeda guys. And one by one, we started checking off the people that we were supposed to get. And the whole time we were looking for weapons of mass destruction. The whole time that we're there, every time we go in the city, we check out warehouses, we check out caches or no caches. We pay off informants. Informants give us information. Half the time it's bogus, or half the time it was miscommunication or whatnot. Sometimes they would pay off and we find a weapons cache, and we go in there and, you know, take the weapons. If they fought, you know, they put up a fight, we'd put up a fight, and eventually we'd come get the weapons and bring them back to the airbase in Kirkuk, where they would where the engineers would blow them up. And we did that. We got everybody on the list, including Saddam Hussein and his sons. And I remember the day that we found Saddam Hussein, and it was my unit didn't find Saddam Hussein. I forget what unit did, but, you know, he was in like some hole in Tikrit. But his sons, though, were in Mosul, which was just north of us. And we went there for his sons. I didn't get to go up to where the house was or anything else like that, but we provided security for those guys. And when after all that was said and done, I was like, okay, and we're like 8 months, 9 months into Iraq, and we started asking questions, or at least I did. I was like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we still here? And we, I remember protecting on a couple of VIP details, Halliburton contractors, whose expertise was building oil pipelines. And they went from Kirkuk all the way down to, or they were supposed to go from Kirkuk. I don't know if they ever made it to Kirkuk, but we seen them in near Baghdad and Balad, all the way down to supposedly Kuwait. Now, did they make it to Kuwait? I don't know, but I did see Halliburton hands in Iraq, and we did have to protect them.
Mhm.
And they were building a pipeline, and we also were guarding a bank, the bank in Kirkuk, and they were guarding the bank. Another unit was guarding the bank in Baghdad. And I remember a garbage truck, a dump truck, bringing in a load of gold into the bank. And a couple of the guys I got, or that I was with at the time, got some pictures of it. And what was crazy about that is, before that happened, the Iraqi currency started to inflate, right? And people were driving around sacks full of cash of the Iraqi dinar. Now, you would think that they were like robbing a bank or something, but they're like literally just going around buying food and stuff like that. It was just that their money was, wasn't worth really a lot at that time. I don't even remember what the exchange rate was. But I know that after that happened, the local government gave them, I don't remember how long it was, to turn in the old Iraqi dinar, which had Saddam Hussein's face on it, for the new central bank of Iraq currency. And one of the main selling points of them turning it in, other than the exchange rate, was they kept on telling on the radios, they kept on blasting it out in Arabic that, you want to turn in your currency because you don't want Saddam Hussein's face, everywhere. We want to get rid of Saddam. That's the bad era of Iraq. We're going into the good era of Iraq. We're going into a new time period in Iraq where it's more better and more prosperous. And I mean, that's all well and fine, but and I really did think that that's probably what was happening at the time. But looking back on it, after I got out, and you got to think I was a teenager when I was in, getting out of the military, and looking back on it, I realized that that's not what was happening at all. It was the Rothschild banking system was being installed in Iraq. And I had no idea what was happening because I didn't know who the Rothschilds were at the time. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea. But witnessing it firsthand and seeing it happen, I could tell you that, the psychological operation behind that was pretty fierce, because they made local Iraqis, and you had some resist, you had some, you're always going to have some resist. But the majority of them were like, oh yeah, I want to be a part of this, good, this good era of Iraq. And so, yeah, let's get rid of Saddam. And they started tearing down his statues and stuff like that. And if there was a portrait of Saddam on a side of a building, a government building or whatever, they had ladders. They would go up there and they would like take it would look like an ice pick or something. They would like peck out his face, so you couldn't see Saddam. And then, leaving Iraq, was Saddam a tyrant? Oh, of course. Was he a dictator? Of course. Was he brutal? Of course he did. He gassed some of the Kurds, and which are really cool people. I loved spending time with the Kurds. They're just like Europeans, except for they speak Arabic, and they're really cool to hang out with. And yeah, but looking back on it, Saddam Hussein was a dictator. He was a tyrant. He was all these things. But did the United States go in there and stabilize the country? Fuck no. We went in there and we destabilized the country. And I don't think there is even, I don't even think that's even a question anymore. We went in there, we spent billions, if not, we spent trillions of American dollars, trillions. And what did the American people get out of it? Because going in there, me being patriotic, I love this country. I love America. And I love the idea of the Constitution, the idea of freedom, freedom of speech, and, you know, fighting for what is right. But looking back on it, is that what we did? No. If we were to have this conversation coming out of Iraq, like the year that I came out of Iraq, I would probably wouldn't have this conversation with you because I had so much pride in, you know, what we did over there. Because, you know, you fight with your battle buddies over there, and then you lose a couple of your friends. You lose a couple battle buddies. A couple battle buddies come back and they're not the same. Some of them aren't the same, you know, mentally, but some of them aren't the same even physically. They're not, some of them, you know, are disabled for the rest of life. So having the thought that I came back out of Iraq and knowing that what I did over there was all in vain, I wasn't mentally ready to accept that.
Yeah, you
And
want to feel like it was worth something, the sacrifice.
yeah, I mean, yeah. And to think that all of that was done for control and money, and to let that sink in, you know, it really pisses you off. It really makes you really angry about the entire situation. But I will say this though, you know, not every day was hard over there. Some days were better than others. And, you know, some of the population was really good. And, you know, most of the population, most of the Iraqis over there, they're good people. They don't want no beef. Most of the Iraqi people over there don't want any beef at all. They're just like, man, leave me alone. I'm just trying to go to work. I don't know what's going on with all this stuff. You know, can I please stay out of this? Most Iraqi people are like that. But you start blowing up their houses, or you start blowing up some of their family members' houses, and, you know, in Operation Shock and Awe and stuff like that, you start creating enemies real quick. And looking back on it, I think it was designed like that. I think it was designed for us to go in there and cause havoc and chaos and destabilize the country and the entire region. Because we didn't have to go in there like we did. We didn't have to go in there guns a-blazing like we did. And not saying that, you know, every day was just like, you know, you're just going at it, but like the sortie missions and George Bush's Operation Shock and Awe, not necessary at all. Completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. The United States military at the time, and still is, was the greatest military on the planet Earth. And nobody could even come close to us. Most Iraqi soldiers surrendered within the first week. They didn't want any beef. We had Al Qaeda cells and Fedayeen soldiers to fight. That's basically it. And they were fighting guerrilla warfare, and they weren't going to be, you know, I mean, they're not going to want to be captured or anything. So it was going to be hard to take them out. And so it was just guerrilla warfare. But I mean, that's a side that you're not really going to hear from a lot of people. You're definitely not going to hear that from the mainstream media. You know, they're going to paint it like there's nothing but Al Qaeda over there, and there's nothing but terrorism and everything else, and we need to hate that part of the world, which there's so many good people over there. And, you know, it's just sad. Everything that happened there was completely unnecessary. I think people now are starting to wake up to that and starting to realize that. And hopefully we get some serious conversation about that, you know, on a national level going forward.
Yeah, it's necessary if you're a complete psychopath and you're part of the New World Order, right? And you need
Yeah.
complete takeover of every country's currency, right? I mean,
Uh,
it's necessary if you're on that side of it.
if you're searching for complete and utter control of the entire financial system of the world, you're going to have to take out um you're going to have to take out actors like Saddam Hussein
Gaddafi.
and Gaddafi, who absolutely refuse to be a part of your Rothschild banking system. You'll have to destabilize them. You'll have to invade them. You'll have to go in. You'll have to make up some kind of excuse why they're the bad guys and why America, with all of our nuclear weapons, is the good guy to go into these small countries and just utterly devastate them and reorganize them. And yeah, I mean, if you're looking for control, that's exactly what you do.
So you mentioned, not wanting to accept the hard truths about why you were over there. How long did you struggle with that? And what was it that finally made you realize, like, okay, yeah, there was something else really going on over there?
Well, I mean, if I had to pick one moment, is when I seen the Halliburton contractors over there, the Halliburton contractors building the oil pipeline. That was that's the moment when I started asking, what are we doing here? How does this pipeline protect the homeland? Like, I'm not putting those two together. Can somebody please explain this to me? And and to be honest with you, you could even mentally set that aside, coming out, especially being young as I was, you could set that aside mentally. But I mean, something's always like, hey, what was that all about? What was that war all about? When you come home, I'm pretty sure every soldier that's ever been in war that has made it back alive, probably asks that same question, regardless of what the war was. But that war, it was like, seriously, what are we doing here? There's no weapons of mass destruction. We found none. There's an oil pipeline, and they got a new banking system out of it.
Did you ever have any conversations with any of your squad members? Like, once you got home, did you call them and kind of ask the same kind of questions you were asking yourself to see how they saw it, kind of get their perspective on it?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a couple of them. Some of them don't really want to talk about it. Some of them kind of want to avoid the topic. Some of them don't. There's one that I think that we might get as a guest on here. I'm sure he would love to be a guest.
Which one's that?
A Singh.
Okay, yeah, you talked about him.
Punjabi, and I'm sure he would love to talk about this. And he's a really cool dude. And he was a little bit more open to all these things that was going on, but he was doing his research the same time I was doing, my research, and he came to a lot of the similar conclusions that I came to on his own, without us having like a serious conversation together about it. As a matter of fact, I think I've had more conversations with you probably about what's going on than probably anybody else I've had, other than Jimmy. But we'll get Jimmy on here too, and to see what he's got to say. But what I'm curious is, when was it, did you know that something wasn't right about, the majority of stuff that we have talked about between, the whole banking system and, just basically the rabbit holes in general?
I would say, I mean, my memory's not the greatest these days, but I know something that stands out.
It's all the chemtrails.
Yeah, and I'm in California, so get tons of them. I would say definitely, I remember going and talking to you about the kind of some of the stuff you talked about. Confiscating the money was one of the first things they had you guys do, and then issuing the central bank currency, Central Bank of Iraq, right? Isn't that what it said on it?
Yep.
And then I had heard a buddy of mine that I worked with at the jail when I was a correctional officer. He he was kind of on the same level as you with a lot of this stuff, and he was actually a former Marine, coincidentally. And I remember him telling me, the reason why they had to take Saddam out is because he wouldn't play ball with the banking cabal, the Rothschilds, and that there were a handful, I think 6 or 7 at that time, that were not on a centralized banking system. And sure enough, I mean, not long after Saddam was taken out, there went Gaddafi, and wasn't there another one? Didn't they go after Assad or?
Well, they were trying to go after Syria, was Libya. That was Gaddafi, Saddam in Iraq, and I think there was 2 other ones, and I can't remember. But
Well, maybe you know what, we're down to the 3-minute mark. That might be a good time to end this one, and maybe if you're game for it, we'll do a part 2,
okay,
and that'll give us a second to look that up.
okay.
Start the next one with that.
Protests turned destructive in downtown Seattle tonight. Here's what we know as of 10 o'clock.